we've opened the whole notion of the possibility of not believing too much in beliefs themselves as being a kind of worthwhile belief. Part of the reason we became focused on beliefs was because we're trying to move out of the entanglement with the mind and the attachment to emotions and feelings. In terms of how we identify ourselves. So it's an interesting word, identification. You know, what is this thing, identification? And it's very much connected with beliefs. If we identify with our anger, more often than not, there's a belief behind it. I am angry. My anger is powerful. My anger protects me. My anger is indispensable to my survival. If we identify with our fears, what we're doing in a way is saying our fears are real. It's really truth. It's a truth that what I'm afraid of is fearful. And the others, they're just not attuned, they're not with it. I'm afraid of dogs, and dogs are scary, truth, fact. So in this process of identification, we're giving truth to something. And in the first place, we're giving truth to who we are. In this, we create, consciously and unconsciously, a form which is who we are, a person who is who we are. And this isn't just a person out there at a party or in the Markolid or with our friends. These can each be a separate part of the person. It's a person we take with us. We take with us when we're alone in the bath. We take it with us to sleep. In the mornings we wake up and we pick up this person again. But we're not quite sure who this person is. But we're carrying it with us as if it's the truth, this amorphous combination of stories and feelings and patterns. This is the person which must survive. We identify with that. This person is the truth of who you are, the truth of who we are. So we identify with ourselves, as if. And there's two here. There's the person, which we are identifying with. There's one who is identifying with the person. So when something unexpected happens from the outside, for better or worse, it could be winning the lottery. And this person believes that nothing good ever happens to them, but they win the lottery. Or it could be something terrible, a death in the family or an unexpected loss. But something breaks this person. There's a crisis in the personhood, in the identification. The form is no longer holding, according to the way it's been built. And in these little shocks, there's the chance, well, that's not even the chance, there's no choice. That which is identifying is kind of exposed. That which created the person in the first place, that depth of view which identifies, is suddenly, ooh. And normally often what you hear said at that point is, so I don't know who I am anymore. If this can happen, and this can happen, and this can happen, which is all little breakdowns in beliefs, then I don't know who I am. And often the next thing we do is to get to work immediately recreating a person, so that I'll know who I am. Okay, I'm the one who had a lot of bad luck and won the lottery. So you've got to tweak the person. Or all my beliefs about reward and punishment for behavior suddenly broke down because so-and-so died and there was nothing wrong with her. She did nothing wrong and suddenly she died. So my beliefs broke down, so I have to kind of open that belief a little bit and put it back on the person. This person went through something. Got to kind of work a little bit with this sculpture because life is giving it challenges, so we have to evolve it in a way, as if we're in control of its evolution. And as quickly as possible we try and forget that gap where we said, I don't know who I am anymore. It can come down to the serious remodeling. Now I'm the guy that wears a leather jacket because I'm tough, because I've been through stuff. And people say, oh, you've changed because your image has changed. Suddenly you've got a karakat and a leather jacket. Yes, I went through stuff. We go shopping to remodel the person. We dress it like the children with a book, you know, and they come with the little clothes and they change the outfit. So the same thing with the clothes we also do inside ourselves. And our basic motivation for this is to feel comfortable and safe. We're identified. We're hooked. We have a form. There's nothing wrong with this. This is part of living. It's part of the game. But in direct equation to the degree of fear we had with that question, who am I anyway? In going back into creating a form, will be the fear around the form, to keep it, the new form. There'll be a direct equation, which means that this is not a free person that we created. It's not free. It's defensive. It's built to feel safe. It means that we're in a kind of terrible catch-22, that the more people relate to this person that we've built, the more lonely we become. The more what? Lonely we become. Because if they believe in it, and that's who we are, then what about this one that created it? What about the much, much stronger, the one that never changed, the one that never abandoned, that never got broken, that never disturbed any patterns, the one which is always there for us? So one of our chief motivations in building this story of a person and all of this is safety. And it's safety from that weird space where you don't know where you are anymore. Because how could you go into a room full of people not knowing who you are? How could you, when people ask you questions, how could you respond? How could you engage? How could you stay protected, without a person between you and everything else? How will you know what to say, what to do, what's the correct response? If you're okay. And worse, if you don't have this person between you and all of the people, if there's a rejection, it comes straight in. If the person is rejected, it's okay, so they don't really know who I am anyway. They don't know me. Suckers believed in this person that I fed them, but they don't actually know who I am. So this one got rejected, but I'm still here. Ha! We also push away that meeting position of pain. But also then, if this person is rejected, there's not a real response from the inside. Because this person is in the middle, so this one stays protected and it never does connect. So the loneliness again gets greater. Another reason why we don't stay in that space of non-identity is a very, very deep conditioning. That you have to be somebody. That silence is nothing. That non-thought is nothing. That non-identity is nothing. That if you don't believe in something, you have no will or motivation or passion. But it's a dead-end street. Nobody goes there. Everybody goes outwards into the world of stuff, and they make a person out of stuff, and like this you become somebody. Nobody goes backwards and just lets whatever arises by itself speak from its own truth. We're not taught like that. You could do something stupid. There's not consolidation in that. There's layers and layers and layers of patterns and fear and habit. And it's layers which are in the channels of the mind. Subtle layers. So if we stay for a little while not knowing who I am, the mind will very quickly come and say, I'm in a position where I don't know who I am anymore. Very quickly it will make it an identity. It's very sneaky. So we're not talking about being in a mental position of not knowing who I am anymore. Not a mental position. We're talking about finding a safety in the whole existential position. So at first we drop thoughts, for example, and start paying attention more to the silence between the thoughts. What tends to happen is a lot of the atmospheres come forward. One atmosphere can be a kind of tiredness, like the nothingness of this space of silence. For many in the social field, this space of silence can bring forward shame, a kind of shame of intimacy. It's almost more intimate to share silence than it is to tell somebody all your purpose, all your most secrets with words. Just keep the mind going, keep it going, but the silence, to share silence. And this is just the first layer. There is so much in the silence. But also, what can come forward is that the silence, when we move into listening to it or feeling it, there's a border between our silence and other people's silence. There's a difference. There's almost a little crisis. So my silence is slightly, right now, humorous. There's a kind of like little lights in it, like a vibration of joyfulness in it, because they came in. They're the laughter people, they do laugh at you. But this is not necessarily Maital's silence, he doesn't know them from anything. So Maital goes into her silence, something else can come forward. All the different rainbows of feelings and waves of feeling, or whatever's happening on the level of feeling, tends to be there in the atmosphere of the silence of the mind. In the background of the thoughts. And of itself, it would start sprouting thoughts like flowers, either in reaction to, or in protection of, or to affirm something, or to repress something. But what it's reacting to, what the thoughts are springing out of, is this atmospheres. And then, of course, we said yesterday that one of the chief reasons we could get caught in the personhood is in this agenda of getting away from pain and moving towards pleasure. So if there's pain in the silence, the thoughts can either be to release the pain somehow, give it a voice already, express it, reach out through a thought which becomes telling somebody, make a bridge. Or it can be thoughts of denial. I'm not in pain. I know this, I'm not going there. It can be thoughts of distraction. I really want to see this movie that just complete divert from the atmosphere of pain, but the atmosphere of pain is still there in the silence. So silence is a good example of the spaces behind identification and attachment. It's not nothing. There is so much to feel through in the silence. And it's still not stable, because something is blending with the silence and exploring with a curiosity. The silence is changing. Maital comes into the room and the quality of the silence has changed from what it was before Maital came into the room. There's a new shared field. And each one of us within the shared field is unique and totally in the shared field at the same time. Each one of us is having an effect on the whole and is in the whole. At the same time that our emphasis of it is unique. If one person is in a state of grief in a room, and this is whether or not we're thinking this is happening, the grief will be part of the soup of the silence between all of us. It's shared. So in a way, the individual identity goes into a crisis, already with silence. Because it's not all only mine, only mine, only mine. But the paradox is that it is all only mine as well, because each one of us in the room, when we move into silence, is 100% the silence. This is crazy making. The moment we expand into silence, we are 100% the whole field of silence. Each one of us is 100%. It's like parenting a child. The mother is not 50% a parent of the child because there's also a father there. She's 100% a parent of the child. On top of that, the father is not 50% a parent of the child because there's a mother there. He's 100% a parent. It's 200%. And certainly this is how it is for the child. He doesn't look at his mother and say, here's half a human being. It's a 100% parent. We don't open into the shared silence between us and say, okay, everybody except Dana's silence. We might do it, but the reason we will do it is because there's something in the silence of Dana which we're pushing down, we're trying to numb it. So it's really about us. It's ours. Or something about our projection on another. Also, when we begin moving into silence, and we even kind of don't really, we're curious about the atmospheres there and the vibrations there, and not in a way that we try and control it, but we're just curious because we never really explored this atmosphere of silence. There's so much stuff there. There's so much to look at, to experience. But even beyond the experience, there's something stable. The weather's changing in the silence, but there's something stable there. It's also silent, but it's not changing. It's not changing, and it's not moving, and it's not developing, and it's totally alive. And alive is a difficult word because alive suggests changing and developing, but it's not. It was there, maybe in our earliest memory. It's still there, in our earliest memory of being in this life.
You're referring to it as it, or did you say something that I...
No, it. The part, the aspect of the silence, of being in silence, which hasn't changed, doesn't change. The aspect which is there regardless of whether we are having a whole argument in our minds with ourselves. Or cooking dinner, or leaving our parents' home for the first time, moving into a new life as an adult. It's always been there. And it always is there, even when we're thinking, even when we're feeling. It's always there, and it's not a dead end. It's the aspect which is always going to be the place we fall back to. Because this is what makes all the thinking and feeling possible. You can't have thoughts and feelings and plans and persons and all of this happening without a still point. this whole dimension is one of many dimensions, or many doorways, to a place beyond duality, beyond the either-or of the mind, which is so much connected to our beliefs, good and bad. Good and bad is a very broad, big duality, out of which many others come.
You're saying the still point is this gateway to the non-duality.
Yeah, it's a gateway.
A gateway.
It itself is not in duality. Duality couldn't happen like the belief that hate is the opposite of love. And to love, you're good. Good love is good. Hate, bad. You see how they move in trees? So this is the trunk.
This is the who?
The trunk of the tree.
Trunk.
Out of which all the thoughts emanate, but not just the thoughts, because like Bart said yesterday, the feelings are also a kind of thoughts. It's feeling thoughts. Because if the mind says that hating is bad, then the mind puts a pressure on the organism to love. So maybe what we do, because we're such good children of our own minds, is we remember somebody we once loved, and that feeling of love, in order to take that feeling of love when we look at somebody who actually we don't like at all. We start to distort. Which is okay. Love is very worthwhile in itself, but it can get very complicated. It's not directly relating to what's happening with others. It's the whole field of we should, we must, we're obliged. So in this whole area of duality, like with the pleasure and the pain, we want all the good stuff. We need to be a good person. We need to be okay. We have to be okay. And the education begins very, very young. You know, the child flushes the toilet. After you told him 10 times to flush the toilet after he's done a khaki, he flushes the toilet and you say, "What a good boy! Now you're good. Now you're okay." So when he flushed the toilet, or didn't flush the toilet before, he wasn't good. He wasn't good. Most of the time he's not good. Only when he's told he's good, he's good. It's built in very deeply into our language and into our conditioning from the beginning. So we deny and we get caught in this. This is the first kind of building blocks of personhood, to be good and to be okay. Which very much quickly leads into to be acceptable and not to be rejected. But this whole drive to be good, therefore we get accepted, is arising out of a core rejection. The rejection of that part of ourselves, which we believe is bad. So all the time we have to be loving. If we experience hatred, it didn't happen. Or, if it undeniably happened, you really got pissed off, it's because of this. And before long we're in a whole drama. Just because we're not allowed to not feel love. Or just because we're unable to let go of our identification with the person to such an extent that hatred is not so necessary anymore. Because we tend to hate when the person we think we are is threatened. So a little bit, I tried to show it through silence, but also yesterday what we've been talking about is these spaces beyond the duality, beyond the either-or. And I got the feeling we're still speaking about them as if they are, whoa, transcendental, elated, developed, somewhere we have to get to an achievement, a spiritual attainment. It's not. It's there all the time. It's really, really, really common. We just forgot to give it any, to identify with that, to sit in that, to be that. We lost our ability to feel safe, being just purely alive, being free. We forgot this basic aspect of our existence, is existing. It can't be that all of our thoughts and feelings in whatever combination and shapes, in whatever social field, are more important than that which exists behind it. It can't be. That which they arise out of. But we're so put to sleep and so trained to constantly move in this way as if who we are is nothing. It's nothing. And after a while it begins to feel like nothing. Loneliness. Loneliness is also a gateway. In a sense, every little feeling and emotion is a gateway if we allow it all the way. Every particle of experience is a gateway. Every thought is a gateway. Even a meditation on your little finger, if you really contemplate your little finger, not even a meditation in a bus stop, and really go into the miracle of this thing that you can move. This little, taken for granted piece of bone and flesh and blood, which is part of the whole of you in the first place and the rest. The miracle of it, even this, can lead you back to the truth of who you are, if you go all the way. One thought, we have 1,000 billion thoughts a day, often at the same time, several of them going on. Take just one thought, doesn't matter which one, any random thought, and stay with it. Go all the way. A thought isn't just something which is going on. A thought also has an atmosphere to it, has a voice. You can take one thought, even your own name, how you normally hear your name in your head, and you have the power to change the voice in the head, which is the thought. You can take a thought which is deadly serious to yourself. Because often we have core thoughts which are like self-hypnosis. One of mine is, nobody likes me. You go into the most sublime meditations and dissolve in the person and everything and relax for a moment in this infinite space, and then comes, nobody likes me. Like, this is deep stuff. One thought with so many branches, so many trees, a whole jungle around it.
So what do you do with that? You take that thought that is deadly to you, and
what I do with it is totally attend to it with really unconditional acceptance. Because this is a kind of insanity. Who is the me that nobody likes? Who is nobody?
Mm-hmm.
What is this record playing in the background? The basis of the mind. Nobody likes. Nobody likes. It's crazy. You just come through a meditation in which you experience unity and release all personhood you think, and the mind is still there with its broken record. After all that, the heart is in the refinement of still love, and it comes, nobody likes me.
So you tend to, you said unconditional
acceptance in the first place, because as a thought, it's just a thought. It's just a thought, but when you really, 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 really allow it, you can follow it to a very, very subtle agenda behind the whole bloody meditation. To be accepted. To spiritually develop, to be acceptable. A very, very, very core programming. So something begins to get more free. And it's not like it's always in a moment. But because the mind is quite physical, it starts to reform. The core unconscious identification with the line, nobody likes me, is weakened. You don't believe in it anymore. But it's not on a level of, there's the surface mind I don't believe, it's already on a level of agenda.
You don't believe it anymore, or less so, because you followed it down to this, to be accepted, this conditional thing, this deeply ingrained condition that we've been brought up with, to be accepted. And so when you follow it down to that basic feeling experience, or feeling thought experience, then without solving it or doing anything more with it, just following it down there, you're saying that the elasticity of this mind state shifts it. Whether, not that it won't return again, not that it's not about that, but that it begins to have its subtle reshifting around.
There's a disinvestment. But what would be let's say that the basic agenda, the basic agenda, in this case, is to be accepted, to belong. In the whole inner universe, at the basis of the mind, what would you do in terms of attitude with it? What would be the antidote? If the thought is to be accepted, then what's behind that is some kind of core pain of rejection. So how do we deal with rejection inside ourselves? The pain of rejection. The pain of rejection that we haven't not even really fully allowing ourselves to feel. What would be the best attitude, the best feeling response to the pain of rejection? Allow. Acceptance. Yeah. So this is an example of a duality, which we spin through with the mind. Reject, accept, reject, accept, reject, accept, reject, accept. So one of the core forms of our mind and of our conditioning. It's a duality.
So it brings us back
Without
to
rejection, there's no acceptance. Without acceptance, there's no rejection. So we stay in the loop.
We're still there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's certainly more worthwhile to move with acceptance of rejection than it is to move with rejection of rejection. Mm-hmm. Rejection of rejection, well, it will also create a crisis at a certain stage in whatever believed it could be rejected. So, with every duality, there's a third point. There's that which can reject, there's that which can accept. This whole spiraling game is looking for something. To be accepted, to be rejected. It's searching for something. If I don't get it by acceptance, I get it by rejection. It's almost, as it spirals, it almost becomes the same thing. Pointing at something that never needed to be accepted, that never could be rejected. Pointing to a depth of ourselves where the whole concept of acceptance and rejection is silly. It's amazing when people move to forms of life where they're incredibly accepted and they're applauded and they're rich and they've got everything they want and they've got the perfect wife and the perfect or husband and the perfect everything, how rapidly they move into self-rejection. Mm-hmm. How hollow it seems. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how when people are rejected, how quickly they are sometimes able to move into that space which is beyond any rejection. This existential space of something which is, I am here, I exist, I'm alive, and there's such a power in that. I mean, I'm describing the history of the state of Israel here, in a way, and how people often move through a trauma of it. When the shit really, really, really hits the fan, it comes to a critical point where the person breaks open anyway, the person kaput, and then there can be such a surge of unconditional life, existence, with a source, freedom. It's terrible that it often takes so much breakage and destruction to set that free. So Maital said yesterday about the beliefs, that many of our beliefs are driven by the fear of death, which is totally true. And in a way, rejection is very much connected with the fear of death. If we are rejected, we die. It's a belief. It's a belief, but it's very, very deeply instinctive. If a herd of horses rejects one of the horse from the group, probably it will die, physically. The contemplation on death is always really, really, really worthwhile in terms of freeing ourselves from the person, from the cage, from this limited form where we've imprisoned ourselves by investing in the kind of non-truths, where we lose our freedom, where we lose our power. Because the one that's always here, so full of power, so full of love and bliss in a way, this one that looks like nothing, which is behind all duality, like this will be there the moment that you die. And it will be like no time passed between now and then. Nothing passed. We blink. Who knows what happened in this where we weren't there anymore, and we wake up, but oh my God, I'm old and I'm going to die soon. We were born, we will die. This is going to happen. The same one will be there as is here now. The same one. This one doesn't die. This one doesn't get born. It's always here. What's terrible is that we sometimes, as humans, we seem to need to wait until we're actually physically, the physical form of the person is disintegrating before we allow that one which was always here. And in a way then, there's a tragedy that we miss the opportunity of being here physical, alive, because it's already over. Oh, there was a party, but it's already over. The body is changing and aging and breaking down and reforming anyway, year by year. It's incredibly flexible and moving, and we're in it. We're not changing. You see people in old folks' homes, sometimes they can't quite understand what they're doing there because they don't feel anything's changed with them. I don't belong here with all these oldies. Inside, it's the same one that always was. We don't need to wait to die to come to life, to allow the life which we are. But as long as we have a belief that death is the opposite of life, and that we believe that this is a duality, life versus death, which we're trained to believe, we are going to be driven by fear and by survival, which means to greater and greater degrees, our ability to enjoy life is restricted. It's held prisoner. And this is not prisons from the outside or the social field, these are prisons we keep ourselves in. As long as we believe that life is the opposite of death, we will be imprisoned in personhood.
Imprisoned in what?
Being a false person.
A false person.
Birth is the opposite of death. It's a constant flow of transformation. Birth, death. Look at a tree. Look at a seed. Plant a seed in the ground. The seed breaks open its casing. Out of it comes a sprout. Out of it can come, in its own time, space, a whole tree. The seed, did the seed die? The seed ceased to exist? Everything that was in the seed is expressed in the tree. But you can't find the seed anymore. The individual one. Birth is the opposite of death because the way the body, the physical dimension, matter, the mind, the feelings work is through a constant cycle of transformation. Everything's transforming. There's no end point. And within all of this transformation of all that we are and all that we experience and all that we think, there is a core of who we are, which is so strong it can allow all this transformation. It never changes. And it's in every detail of that which is transforming. You know, when we're in a romantic relationship, at one moment, we're totally in love. It's in the love. The next moment we have an argument. And there's anger and hatred. It's in the anger and the hatred. It's constant. The next moment there's love again. It allows all of these colours, all of these transformations. And it's not different from one person to another. Although it is so intimate, we try and fence it off from what we have believed, learned to believe is other. It's our private inner space, yet it's the same one in everyone. At its source.
So on the level of existence, we're there, but the essence, it's still there. So all these other things are minor or?
Identifications. And anyway, it's it doesn't care whether we identify or not, but we suffer in it. We get scattered. It's not very economical when you forget the core strength that you are. And when you think that that it's an end point, a dead end, the source of all we are, the source of everything we could ever be, the cause of it all is an end point. It's the start of the journey. But our qualities, they're not our qualities, they're our responsibility. They evolve, they change. We have the gifts. We're responsible for them right now.
Like in another existence, we might not have these gifts.
We could have a different
different set.
set of beads or jewels.
So minimize the importance of all these.
The more we allow them to be not absolute, the more we're able to use them. You know, to take a quality, take a gift. You're an incredible painter. How could you express this gift if you thought it was yours? You would never let it go. You can't give something without letting it go. You would be too afraid of criticism, all of this, to actually let anyone see your painting, because it's yours, not something to be shared, to totally let go of, unconditional to what anybody thinks about it. That's not letting go. I only let it go if it's accepted, because it says something about me. You see the lack of freedom in it?
Also, we take ourselves very, very, very serious. That doesn't mean that life is not serious. But if we just all regress back, you know, and remember that you go to school for the first time or band for the first time. And then there start this game, and we're totally aware that it's a game of acceptance and rejection. It's a game, we don't take it as serious. But before we know, this whole game becomes that serious and the most serious thing. But it was a game. So when we're able to play with it, and we didn't take it that serious, is when we learned the fastest. So we learned the fastest, we developed the fastest. In playing, we develop the fastest. You know, what happens in the whole kind of playing with life, playing with our qualities, playing with all the building stones we've got. At a certain moment, we lose our playfulness. It becomes serious, it becomes real. This is what it is, it's real. And the building stones are real. But by kind of stepping back and saying, we are not the building stones, we can play with them. We move into something what Georgi brings forward, which is much more constant. And it's the freedom to kind of seriously live. When we think we are the building stones, we are in a struggle with life all the time. We are not seriously alive. And we all know this from daily life. It's not something new what I'm telling. You know, if you see the freedom to play, you're cooking and you see the freedom to play with ingredients. It's fun. But then the neighbors are coming to eat. And there is a stress. And then all the ingredients, you know, the playfulness is gone. Everything is that serious. And it becomes real. Then we think it becomes real. So what is reality? Is it the reality that we play? And we take the risk that the meal would be totally a disaster? Or is the reality that it is serious and now it has to be the best meal they ever ate? I think that's an illusion. It's not that serious, it's just a meal.